Hi, it's Daria and She Did It Show. I'm so happy to introduce you today our guest, digital technology leader, top woman in AI and technology, Valeria Sadovykh. Valeria, thank you so much for coming today, and I'm so happy because I know that you just got your EB1 visa of extraordinary talents in the US, and you started to work in Microsoft and came from LA to New York City. And I'm so happy that finally we have met with you, and I would love to speak about your career, about your professional pathway, because you have an incredible life experience and so many interesting projects you accomplished. So
Thank you, Daria. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited here. I would love to, have a conversation, discussion, and whatever I can provide here, give an advice or anything. I'm happy. Let's just have fun and let it go. Yeah.
So let's start. I know that you've been working and you've been living in so many countries, in New Zealand, in Asia, in Europe, and being born in a small European city. Yeah. Eastern Europe city in Russia, in Khabarovsk. How did you end up in such an amazing life experience? How did you start working in those places?
Yes, correct. I was born in a small city of population around 600,000 people, and I think I was lucky because my parents actually sent me overseas on a study abroad program to study English, and they sent me to New Zealand. And I was 17 at this time, and I was just fascinated by the beauty of New Zealand, by the culture, by how international they were at this time, all the races, all the communities there. And I came home and I said, you know what, I just want to live there and I want to study there, and I want to pursue my academic career actually in New Zealand. And that's how I ended up there. However, I've always been eager to discover more. I always had a hunger for international experience. So I knew even when I was in New Zealand that it's not enough for me. I want more. I wanted bigger countries, bigger jobs, and etc. So while I was in New Zealand already, after 5 to 6 years, I realized that the future is actually in Asia. So I already had a plan that I will be moving to Asia, and that's how I ended up in Asia. And actually, I ended up in Singapore, and I got a job offer in Singapore. So after New Zealand, spending 11 years in New Zealand, studying, educating myself, I did master's, PhD. I moved actually to Singapore, spent 5 years there, and then after I finished my PhD, I had a life decision to take where I want to go, whether I want to go to the UK or the US. US came first because of like a lottery, right? The US give me another job offer, and I actually end up in the US. And within the 6 months of the decision, I end up in the US. And then after that, I got my extraordinary abilities visa within a year and a half. And then I moved the cities from New York to LA, and I also changed the job. So that was a fascinating ride.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Sounds amazing. But why AI? Why did you start to be interested in technology? What
brought me there? It's actually, I think it's AI is only become a buzzword for the last 5-7 years maybe, right? AI did not exist when we were kids. However, internet came when we were like probably early teenagers, like 9-10 years old. And I remember myself being so fascinated and being stuck at the computers and just basically going online and observing people communication. At that time we had online chats, right? Different type of chats. I don't know if you've been part of it, but I actually, we had some different chats, like everyone was talking in the background. We had like the groups and things like that, and I remember MSN, something. And I remember myself having accounts in every single chat, but actually never participating. So because I was observing and I was looking what are people talking on those chats. And then I started thinking, why are they exposing themselves to this world, the world web? And that's actually how it brought me to my interest of studying human decision making, studying psychology, people participation, and also bring the component of technology in, how technology actually impact the people interaction. And that's basically been research of all my life. I started on the postgraduate degree. That was my research subject on my honors years. Then I moved it to master's degree because I started being really interested in health online social networks. So I was participant there. I was looking into different type of networks in terms of cancer, Alcoholics Anonymous, depression, pregnancy, AIDS. So I was looking at the entire health spectrum, and I was trying to figure out why people outsource their health decisions to the world web. And then in my late 20s, I was actually in a different life stage. I was more interested how would I secure myself financially, and that's how I got interested in the financial online social networks, and then I could do the comparison analysis basically. Yes, and that's later on it brought me, plus in addition I had my professional life where I was working for a consulting firm where I interacted with technology, implementation of big tech projects. I realized that AI started coming into the place, and it was really small kind of jump from online social networks to AI technology, because it's all kind of tech related, it's all digital, it's all mathematical models, interactions, humans, data. So I started being extremely fascinated about the AI subject, ethics and AI, how do we build AI technology, how AI actually influences human decision making.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I wanted to ask a couple questions, but
yeah,
you're
go ahead. There will be lots of questions.
That's awesome. Yeah. So your educational background, you've been studying in New Zealand.
So I finished all of my degrees in New Zealand, even obviously I finished the high school in New Zealand, then I finished the university, the bachelor degree, then I did my postgraduate, then I did my master's program, and then I did my PhD. So in total, I probably spent up to 12 years to 13 years at university studying. And the reason behind it, because actually master's and PhD I was doing part-time, because I had to pay the bills, right? I had to survive. I had to pay for my education, and I had to work as well to get the experience. So I was doing it part-time, so it took me a bit longer.
You told that you started to work part-time. Tell us about your career. I know that I
studied part-time, but I work full-time.
Full-time.
Yeah, so I could pay for education and yeah.
And at the same time, you've been working on your PhD.
And at the same time, I've been working on my PhD. At the same time, I was moving countries. Wow. And at the same time, obviously, life happened, right? Moving the houses,
did
countries,
you have time
jobs.
To leave?
Going back, it was an interesting ride. It was a race. It was a race for career, it was a race for education, it was a race to cover the bills, it was a race for survival, for competition, but I want it all. Yeah. At that time, I want it all. Now I'm looking back and I was like, well, maybe it didn't worse to spend so much hours in the library and so many nights spending working, or so many nights educating myself and reading the books, but who knows?
But you are in an amazing place right now. I know that you've been working as a data analyst, then as a consulting company, and now you end up in Microsoft.
So I end up in the tech company, right?
Yeah,
so
this transition.
when I was in New Zealand, I actually started working for a media company as a data analyst. It was my first job. Then I moved to a startup, and I was working as a project manager at that time. So that was just helping me to kind of progress with my education, so I could do half and half. But then I started pursuing my PhD, and then that's how I got a job offer from big consulting firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers. However, they hired me at the junior role, even I had an experience already, but because it's just the way how
very structured
company, like the way how you get in there is whether you get into from the elementary level, the entry level, or you get later on. But however, I got in, I was super excited. I didn't even pay attention to the point that they put me a bit at a different level. However, some people who joined earlier, they were actually promoted faster. So it was kind of interesting. I had more degrees and I had more qualifications, but younger people had a more senior position. But that's life, that happens. But I'm extremely still grateful for my consulting experience that took me all around the world.
So you've been doing consulting, and you've been working with enterprises, and you've been helping them to transform from regular procedures to digital procedures, right?
So basically, yes, most of my consulting career have been specifically focusing on digital transformation programs of work. And what does it mean is where we try to make the enterprises more data-driven, intelligent enterprises, so they can focus more on strategy rather than doing operational activities. So we introduce the automations, we introduce intelligent automation, data analytics, AI, cloud, all of the Industry 4.0 solution stack, so the companies can actually progress further and compete in the market and be more effective and efficient in their everyday business. However, it sounds easy, but it's not that necessarily easy, because organizations are big and large, and there are lots of corporate cultures, lots of corporate decision makers needs to be made, governance, and et cetera, different projects. So sometimes those projects were large, sometimes they were small, based on the client's needs. Yeah, but and they all were different. Sometimes we had to change the organizational culture. Sometimes we had to put the new operating model in place. Sometimes we had to put the robotics in place. So yes, it's heavy implementation projects.
Yeah, with lots of steps.
Lots of steps, lots of people, large teams. Teams could be distributed globally, or teams could be located locally. So it's all depend on the client needs, teams, countries where I was living, because within my consulting firm I changed 3 countries, right? And each country's got different way of working.
Yeah, and how your academical background, and you right now are doing research right now.
So academical background, so my
how
academic...
did it help? Yeah, or how do you still work on that, right?
So I'm still involved in academic life. I publish papers, probably it's not as many as I used to do when I was in my PhD program. I do publish at least 1 or 2 papers, whether it is an academic journal or conference proceeding. I still run some of the mini tracks on the subject of AI, human decision making. Now I'm really interested and excited about the metaverse. How would the academic life help in my corporate life? It's interesting. It's not necessarily could be easily defined in terms of the help or assistance, but I was always be able to differentiate myself from others, because the way how I was approaching problems were different, right? I had a background of doing an extensive research, so I always could come up with different options, hypotheses, right? I had the hypothesis model in my head all the time, statistical analysis, practical analysis. So every time I saw a problem, I would have come up from a different sides, and I never would have pursued on one exactly decision. I would have different options available, and I never necessarily would have pushed someone to a specific decisions, because I would have just collect the information for the stakeholders to make in a different way that would challenge them, and or would at least help them to see different options. So I think that's how it helped me to differentiate. But also I should say that the consulting career helped me, actually career in the corporate world helped me in my academic research, because I was able to be more robust, right? I was able to do probably, be sharper and not only focusing on the theoretical implications, but I was so eager to understand practical implications, that how they could be transformed to organizational life, to the human beings. How, for example, I was studying human decision making and online social networks. So my main research focus was actually how do we design online social networks so it can help people to make a better decision, because most of the people make their decision based on the information that is available online, and not necessarily all of this information that is available online is actually governed. So it's a really risky way of making a decision. Yeah, so I think it's the academic, it's a synergy. It's a synergy. It's cannot necessarily can say it helped me so much to progress in my career ladder. Probably it didn't. Maybe sometimes it's put a bit of more pressure on the people around me, because now I come around and I can just say, oh, I've got a PhD. But it's not necessarily, it sounds good, but it's not necessarily always applicable in the corporate world. So sometimes I just don't say it. It's just because I always treat it as a hobby.
You can just sign.
I can sign as a doctor. No, unfortunately, I cannot sign as a doctor, because it doesn't count as a medical degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now, after such an amazing consulting career, you switched to tech company. I
switched to tech company. Right.
What do you do now?
So we all have to change. Change is the most important aspect, and for me, it's important to change every probably 2 years to 3 years. I want to challenge myself, whether it's countries, jobs, whatever it is. So currently at Microsoft, I also still focus on the digital transformation programs of work. However, I'm a technology strategist for the enterprises located in the West region. And basically, I act as a virtual CTO for them to manage the digital transformation journey and with the aspects of the Microsoft technology stack. So I try and make sure that whoever my enterprises or my accounts, they are actually have a journey for the next 5 to 10 years on the digital transformation and how we, as my company, can help them. Yes.
Wow, it sounds great. I'm sure that will be such an interesting path.
It's interesting. It's an interesting job. I love my job. I love my previous job. I love my academic job. I love everything, whatever I do.
Yeah, that's how it should be. That's awesome. Yeah, and speaking about in how many countries did you work and in how many companies, if we are speaking about women's leadership in Asia, in New Zealand, in Europe, in USA, what are the differences did you feel, or maybe you didn't feel any differences?
No, there are huge differences.
Corporate culture for
corporate culture, and just in terms of it's a different continents, right? Obviously, different culture, different migration structures. So when I was in New Zealand and I was young, I actually never felt any gender pressure at all because everyone was equal. And I think most of the people know that in New Zealand we've got a female prime minister, and she's an example of a powerful woman. So I don't remember having any gender biases in my corporate world. Maybe because I was young, maybe it did not apply at universities. Maybe I didn't pick up on that at that time. However, when I moved to Asia, I was in Singapore, and Singapore is extremely multicultural country and multinational, and all of the religions are there, and there is no race issues as such. So I remember seeing so many strong female leaders, which is really unique for the Asian continent. But in Singapore, there are lots of women who are in a high position, and I had an experienced and so many kind of coach woman leaders in extremely C-suite positions. So, however, I was also progressing a bit further in my career. I started realizing there are less and less females in the boardrooms. So at that time,
it's how you go, right?
It's how you go. Something started picking up on that, right? And I was in my probably late 20s at that time. So girls start getting married, having kids. So they start disappearing from the corporate world. But that's nature, that's normal. However, in Singapore, there is a really good support system in terms of the help. So it wasn't that. But again, I'm working in STEM, right? Science, technology, mathematics kind of industry.
A lot of men.
It's a lot of men. So there will be always 85% of the guys and only 50% of the girls, and only 2 or 3 in the meeting if you're lucky enough. So, but then it's also you knew that there are some were part of the beer club and some who were not part of the beer club, and some of the instances
like cigar clubs.
Yeah, also, the guys hanging out on Friday afternoon, and the girls might not necessarily hang out with them because they have to go home or they have to have different plans. So, and that's where all the decision happens. So you start picking up on these small things, but I wouldn't not.
Like informal,
yeah, informal. Of course, sometimes guys get promoted faster than the girls. It does exist, but I should have not kind of think about it that way. However, what was eye-opening experience actually coming to the US.
Oh, it's interesting.
And there was so much noise about the inequalities, gender inequalities, race inequalities. And I came in 2019, just before the pandemic, just before the Black Lives Matters. And I was like, whoa, how on earth US, which is the most advanced country by the opinion of the world, have so much issues? And then the problem was there was so much, I could see the issues of gender inequalities, but I also saw so much noise and actions happening in this area, but no results. That was the biggest question I had, is we all talk about the gender inequalities, race inequalities, biases, but we all do something about it, but it still exists in everyday conversations, in everyday corporate environment where you go, how you get promoted, how you get, like what type of projects get allocated, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's, but it's of course relative to organization, industry to industry, companies to companies. I saw good examples, I saw bad examples, but here in the US it was much more visible.
An issue.
It was an issue.
Yeah.
Like I think it's still an issue. You can see it here.
It's a long
But it's
process.
really interesting why there is so much talks about it, so much actions,
Maybe
but no
that's
results.
It's
Maybe
just-
it's just talks without any activities. I don't know, but that was an experience. It probably was something I couldn't not relate to. But I also would say that when I came to the US, I was surprised that all of the managerial practices, all of the leadership principles, all of the way of working, team management, they all came, the books about those management practices, they came actually from the US. However, when I faced the traditional corporate environment in the world, I haven't seen this to be exercised. And that's for me was implemented. That for me also was shocking because I saw that the Asia and New Zealand was actually much more advanced in the way how they running their relationship, team management, and etc. So, but that probably just my experience, but maybe, yeah.
Actually, that's why US needs such professionals as you are with international experience who can bring some practices from other countries and to.
But the US
take
is
a
big.
look.
It's got quite a massive flow of talent. So they've got
talents.
quite a lot of talent there. That's for sure. Different type of talent. Yeah.
Well, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of AI and women empowerment, how you think AI, what you're working partly on, could help with women empowerment movement? Maybe how it could improve it, or
If we
any
talk about
thoughts
more like from
about
practical
that?
perspective, right? AI is it's machine learning models, right? It's a mechanism that is built by human beings. It's a processing the historical data, right? The data that has been generated by humans, by us. And this data is biased. It's extremely biased. But why is it biased? It's not the data is biased. We are biased. Human beings are biased, and we're producing the data. So if you take the data from the US or you take the data from Scandinavian countries about the same kind of whatever, like female participants in the higher leader positions, right? You'll have a different data sets. However, that's probably the use case for the AI, which it can actually identify the biases and show the biases that exist in our data, whether it is an HR system that's screening the CVs, right? So how many cases we heard that lots of the organizations, when they have implemented these AI models on the HR systems, they're actually screening more towards advantage of males rather than females because based on the historical hiring decisions. And there is nothing wrong with that because it's a history, it's been done, it's been made. Okay, was it good or bad? We don't know, but I mean, that's actually how AI helps us to identify the faults in our data. The same is, for example, everyone heard about the credit card histories, credit ratings that the females get low credit ratings or get less credit, or insurance coverage for females sometimes are more expensive than for males. But that's all the cases is available on the internet and we can all read about it. So technology is actually helping to uncover those things. So that's essential.
And speaking about technology and AI, what is the most exciting technology today? You will.
I don't think there is like a specific tech tool available that is exciting. There are hundreds of them out there, and there is not necessarily an app, right, that is the most exciting. But I think it's all about the concept that's currently coming in. And one of them is, of course, it's for me, it's always going to be digital transformation in Industry 5.0. Now we live in Industry 4.0, which is all about the automation, robotization, right? We're making us more efficient, more effective. We're outsourcing lots of processes, operational processes to machines. But Industry 5.0 is coming, which is all about mass customization and mass personalization. So we still automated, but we're customizing solutions to our personal needs. And that's where autonomous machines start integrating really well with the human brain. That's actually, for me, is extremely exciting because that's where we will aim for the equal society, for the society of comfortable life and society of sustainability as well. That's what we're aiming for. So technology will be able to bring hopefully more good rather than bad. But actually technology is not bringing anything bad. Technology being created by human beings. So whatever is out there, we cannot blame AI. We should be blaming
like
human beings.
extension.
Yeah, it's an extension. We should be blaming ourselves. So this is one of the things. And of course, because I spent all of my life, second part of my life is on online networks, right? Online way of working and participation. So for me, metaverse is an extension to that. And I see that's a huge movement where the digital strategy, the digital avatar, the digital wear is going to be part of our life. The digital friends, it's already part of our life. The modern way of working, the digital way of working, where we will have no offices, we will have no human interaction, but we will have digital interaction. We will have different faces, different representation, and our brands, like now we have our brand as a personal human brand, right? They will become an extension of the digital brand, and they might not necessarily be the same. And that's, yes, I'm excited about it. I believe in that, and I think it will come, and it will come in our age.
We'll see, yeah.
I think it's there. It's the next step. Some people might say it's
like,
not,
yeah,
but
almost.
it's definitely taking over. It's taking over. Of course, we have to take the economical aspect into the place in countries, developed and underdeveloped countries, but in certain societies, in certain kind of parts of the world, that's already took over. And it's not a first mover advantage now. I think we are already like on a third or fourth, because the metaverse also existed for 10 to 15 years, the concept of the metaverse. But it's just become a buzzword recently. The same as AI, and it's all about the buzzwords, but the concept existed for years.
Yeah, and speaking about technologies, about ethical AI, and actually today we're already interacting with Siri, Alexa, with lots of automation messages, from banks, and it become part of our life, and sometimes we don't see that. It's like invisible in art.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. Do you think we should pay more attention to invisible AI and how we could maybe protect ourselves?
There are two things, right? We're talking about the ethics itself, and probably you leading to how do we ethically, is the corporations, when they're designing and building those tools, are they using our data ethically, right?
Yeah.
Because AI is everywhere, right? It's on your phones, on your health screening apps, it's your temperature measure, it's on your video cameras, on the surveillance in the cities, it's everywhere. And how it's been used, it's a big elephant in the room. We don't know, but we assume it's used, and that's how the agencies and the marketing agencies finding out what we like and what we don't like. Yes, we have to be aware of this. We have to know, we have to get the concept of how we're gonna sell our data, if we want to sell our data, because our data, we are responsible for our data, and we should have an ability and an answer to say whether we want to sell it, whether we wanted to give it away or not. And sometimes, because it's so complicated and people not necessarily understand the impact, how much of the personal data they're giving away, we just don't know, because no one reads the terms and conditions, because they're just like 5 pages long.
Hello, Facebook.
That's the first thing, that your data should be protected. You should be owning your data, and you should be in decision how you share it. But unfortunately, we are not in this position. We're just giving it away for free to everyone, and then someone else makes money on it.
Yeah, so maybe later ethics and some policies will be changed.
It's already happening. It's happening a lot. An ethical AI concept also exists for some time, and the corporate organizations and the big tech companies as well, like all of the big names, as we know, they are working on this to improve the machine learning mechanism, to make them less biased, and also build machine learning mechanism and AI in a more ethical way. There are lots of, ethical AI will become the same as quality standards. We've got ISO 500, 900, I think for every product that's been produced in the market, they need to be stamped on the quality, right? On the quality standards for different, whatever it is.
Yeah.
the same is going to
Positions.
happen with the technology. They should be eventually be vetted for the ethical standards.
That's actually fascinating.
That's the dream.
You've been speaking a lot that AI are going to be part of our life, and it's already part of our life. And what if we're speaking about those AI, like our friends or as our companions, and we start to request more from those machines, and maybe one of those criteria is like empathy. We want them to be more emotional. For example, like just yesterday on Wednesday, Dyson announced that they will, in 2030, they are going to create robot who will help at home with everything. So it will be not only like
Cleaning robot, but it's also
but
help
he will pick up things. Yeah, he will
know that he will have enough
communicate.
data, communicate back to you, because he will probably know what's been in your calendar for the last 2 days. Probably you were too busy, and then he decides to clean up the house for the morning.
This sounds fascinating. It's just like they bet it will happen in 2030 already, and this is our future. And if we speak about this part of like
empathy. If you talk about, there are different like empathetic AI, emotional AI, robotized AI, right? Actually, it's been out there for a long time. There have been years of research spent on how can we make computers more emotional and more empathetic. But it's not about how we make the computers more emotional and empathetic. It's actually us, humans beings, are not being created to stay solar for the rest of our life. However, technologies start replacing human beings, right? But the needs of having a companion is always there, right? So technologies start actually replacing. So younger people are staying alone longer, and older people becoming alone earlier. So that's becoming like a really huge factor, because we are seeking a companion. Recent pandemic showed us that, hey, listen, we are not designed to be by ourselves. And what do we have? Our phones. Our phones don't have emotions. They don't have empathy. Like empathy is second thing we will discuss. But emotions, right? We start seeking emotions from technology, and that's why, of course, the retailers, the big brands, and so forth, they invest so much research and they put so much effort in designing something that speaks back to you. And there are great tools already available in healthcare, right? So, for example, the robots talk back to kids, right? So they can put them to sleep, or for for mental health, right? How many support are we getting from technology now, from apps, psychological help, right? Even from the religious perspective, right? We can do the mass online, and the priest can speak with us on different ways. So that's been out there. This is the companion AI that's getting created. The reason behind it is because people seek the companion.
Do you see any side effects of that? What are the
side effects? Is becoming there is one side effect that might have that, and it's actually up to the people how they're going to control, because we also want an emotions, and we think that we want emotions speak back with it. There is a question, there is a big question, not the compliance, companion AI, but how compliant they are to our needs. We want our needs to be met, right? So if we're in a bad mood, we want everyone to help us out, right? So we want the emotional support, but maybe actually what we need is a bit of more stress.
Challenge.
Or challenge, but however we make AI compliant to our needs without, so we're becoming like omni-chamber AI. That means we are not getting challenged. Our decision-making processes are not getting extended. We are becoming in one bubble, in our own bubble, and technology are getting so adjusted to our own needs and our own way of working. It's the same how you go to Google and you see advertisement on Google.
Only for me.
Only for you. It's completely different to me. And when you do the search, you see different news, I see different news. And that's what is happening. So we are start cutting so many choices in our life and so many future decisions that could be better, because we are in this bubble. So that's for us, it's we have to learn how to get out of this bubble.
And
so
to make
that's
a choice what you want to see.
what to see and how compliant we want our technology, but we don't have a say on how we design the technology. So it's also a big question, ethical question. Who is deciding how this companion AI should be designed? And we only touched the good example. There are hundreds of not necessarily good examples, right? And we can go into that next time. But when we talk about empathy and emotions, again, emotions, we think that empathy is actually, it's an intelligent tool, right? Mainly intelligent people's got the empathy. But we always think that empathy is actually kindness, right? So it's kind of, however, empathy is an emotion. And in order to have empathy, you need to have the entire set of emotions. And the set of emotions is actually not only just love and care and support. It's anger, it's frustration, it's envy, right? So if we take an example, the mother love, right? Mother's love to a child, it's empathetic for sure, right? However, mother can get angry, mother can get protective, mother can get frustrated, right? And she will express it on a child. Why? Because she's empathetic to a child, right? So, but do we expect a machine to be angry at us? No, we don't. Do we expect a machine to be giving us challenges? Not really. We don't want someone else to come and say to us, hey, listen, I'm in a bad mood today. I don't want to give you I don't want to talk to you or something like that. Or we want a machine to give us a report and it's not going to wake up and say, you know what, I'm in a bad mood today. I'm going to take a day off, right? Right. So it's also about the human beings. What are they actually? They have to be a bit realistic. What they're expecting, right? Right. We want empathetic AI, the one that listens to us and meet our needs. But then it's becoming so compliant, and it does not provide the full set of emotions. Yeah. So it's all about the needs. It's all about the demands, and it's all about self-education. Why are you using it? For what are you using it? If you are using it for replacing a human being, that's probably a danger. If you are using it for supporting you in a daily operation to save time or to keep you a momentum or something like that, more non-necessarily human related, that's different.
That's different.
Like
this is probably medicine, what we need to.
Yeah, in medicine, for example, right? Sometimes if it needs to monitor your heart rate and give you an indication that you need to take a pill at the right time and the right day because of some of the condition changes, that's an amazing thing. But if it's substituting you a girlfriend and a boyfriend, that's probably not the right way. However, who are we to say?
Like
what
is
the
movie She, right?
She, right? Or like She, or there is a Stepford Wives as well. Yeah, do you remember the story? No one wanted actually compliant wives. At the end, they hated them because they were always saying yes. Everyone wanted a proper wife who says no.
This is not the right thing.
We are not there to say what is right, what is not. In some cases, there are different cases, right? In technology, I'm a believer that AI should be used for good, and it's used for good, but there are different cases.
It's actually interesting also, right now, those technologies are available for wealthy people. So if you can spend so much money on such devices, but that will be the same trend, or it will be more affordable, and it will be like everywhere. We will seek for human.
Yeah, I will actually debate on this, because technology also creating a social economical gap. And the example of this, during the recent pandemic, right? Every school kids went home and started studying online, and they were locked inside their houses. And the people only who had financial access, they could afford to hire personal trainers, private teachers, take the kids out of the apartments, take them to the special camps, which was secretly available or whatever it is. But people with more financial power are actually able to afford more personal touch, more personalization, humanization, because everything online is cheaper because it's mainstream, it's mass provided, it's provided for the mass, so it's cheaper. You talk about the yoga classes, right? Yoga classes online will cost you $10. Yoga classes in real interaction, $30. It's a huge difference, right? So we minimizing the human interaction without even understanding that, and that will create a societal gap. So it doesn't mean that people who's got more financial power will be able to afford more human interaction than people without the financial power. And the education system as well. Lots of reports came out that studies online is not necessarily as effective as offline, right? So it doesn't mean that people who can afford private tutors or private schools will have real teacher, and students who cannot afford will have a robot in front of them. So it's a good point already that education will be available to everyone in every point in the planet. However,
the quality
and it's not the same, and it's again create the societal gap. Is it good or bad? We don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes you go to university to create the circle of people around you with whom you will interact.
Yeah, like I mean, most of our network is built by actually face-to-face interaction in our network, like connections, friends, right? It's really rare actually. For the last 2 years, I made lots of friends online actually, lots, but that I stay with them. I still communicate with them on every day on the digital friends and co-workers, but they are those friends with whom I go and have coffees in real life. Not really, if we think about it. We still have digital coffees with them in a digital world, but we didn't take them on a real world journey.
Yeah, this is different things, right?
Yeah. And then that's how we get so compliant with the technology as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, and using AI in a big corporation and a small business, is there the big difference between those?
Overall, the usage of technology is different in small businesses and big corporations because usually small businesses are faster on implementing the tools. They might not necessarily have the same amount of funds, but they are, especially if we talk about the new startups, they are more energetic, different brain, different type of people, right? They want to try. They are accepting the failure. They are more innovative in some of the solutions, the way how they work, the way how they use the data. So I see sometimes small businesses being more in advance of trying and failing faster, but getting an advantage faster as well, in comparison to the big corporations that's got lots of governance processes in place, lots of stakeholders, decision making. It's not for the new product within the big corporation in the small business to reach the market is a huge difference. And the big corporations will take days, for example, in the best case scenario. And a small business might take a couple of like on the couple of days, a couple of people to decide, couple of people to design, and it's out in the market for the test, for the trial. For the big organization might be different. So different use cases, different set of technologies, different abilities. Yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like small businesses are an advantage because they can pick up on shiny tools quicker, but I do understand that the corporates got their funds.
So
that's
businesses,
why, yes, that's why we've got quite a few small businesses providing services to the big organizations to change their mindset.
So right now there are a lot of startups who try with digital fashion, like metaverses, and just going and creating the new worlds.
Like new modern work. Like, for example, it's quite common now that corporations are changing the way how they work, right? So they're moving into this digital way of working, modern work, that they interact online, that they have different tools, applications, whiteboards, and so on. They don't need the face-to-face presence anymore. So that's where the small companies comes into the place, and they offer the shiny tools, for example. But the big corporations is also working towards this agenda. So it's an interesting point, that small businesses can come to big. Small businesses have access now, easier access probably than 5 to 10 years ago to sell their products to the big corporations.
Yeah, because they tried a lot of things.
Or integrate the products with the big corporations' product as well to make it better. Yeah. So, but it's all thank you to the availability of the internet and being out there, being the citizen of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's speak with you about leadership competences. I know that you've been working with lots of big companies and small businesses as well. And which women leader competences and qualities are the most important right now, do you find?
I don't think I would differentiate between woman and man qualities. I don't want to go there because
you break all stereotypes.
I think I think we have to appreciate obviously the difference between men and women, but when they work in collaboration together, it's a fantastic union and it creates so much good change in any environment, and we have to appreciate the differences. This is the first thing. It's not the war against two different genders, no. So the overall change that happens in the leadership now, it's actually empathy and the human behavior. So leaders are becoming more people-oriented. They are results-driven, of course. It's essential because that's how we live. But there is lots of emphasis now on empathy, on support, on emotional well-being. And I think it's also because the technology actually putting stress on us as well. So we actually need human interaction. So that's, I probably see as essential thing is empathy. But I also would say when people love their job, they do it really well and they provide extremely good examples for the young leaders. And I think that's also a quality of the leadership is love your job and show an example of dedication and drive. And then I think that's also the team leadership examples. It's really difficult, and not every single leader can show the investment in what they do. It's actually even hard to explain, but those that help you to, that energize you and show how much impact you can make to people's life by even putting automation in place, for example. But that's a really significant aspect, and usually leaders like that have their core team, and that core team sticks around because they just, they want to follow the leaders who are excited about the job they do and they love what they do, and also empathetic to their teams.
Yeah, it's actually the big fear right now. Like people speaking a lot about technology replacing human beings from some positions. What do you think will be in demand? Which skills will be in demand?
Well, I don't think technology will replace human beings.
Yeah, but it's like
I don't ever say that, because technology actually creating more jobs than we think about it. The university even don't know what to teach at schools, because there are, in 5 years' time, there will be different needs for the jobs. So I will never say that technology replacing jobs. Some of the operational activities they replace, but fair enough, it's a progression. It's a normal evolution, right? We used to have radios. No one is listening to the radio now, right? TVs, stations. Horses, yeah. So cars now, and now it's electronic cars. We don't want to use the gas. Mm-hmm. So it's normal evolution. We're accepting it. We're automating ourselves. We're automating the processes. That's normal. What will be essential is actually computers can crunch the data, right? But how are we going to make sense out of this data? Computers now also making sense out of this data, but how are we going to get this right strategy and decision making in place? How are we actually going to use it in an effective way? And the people who are good at strategy and good at decision making with the relevant and can read the data, that's actually a really big advantage. And it's also soft skills. We're talking about the soft skills because automation comes in place, robots will come into place, it's all will be there, but soft skills will stay: relationship, network, leadership, teamwork, right? Even how are we going to manage people and robots together in one digital, okay, let's not call them robots, but digital workers, right? And they will exist and they will be there because we already have chatbots, right, that are assisting us in our everyday operation. How are we going to manage them? So the soft skills will come into the place for sure. Strategy, decision making, creativity. Creativity will be big because computers still are not capable of picking up things like emotions, love, care, right? Thoughts or spontaneity, right? Like this way you walk on to point A, but then you end up to go to point B, right? So computer will never pick it up. Or what about your, gut feeling, right? Have you ever thought, will computer ever pick up on a gut feeling? When you look at someone and you're like, this person is a good person, or this person is not the really great person. Yeah. The gut feeling, computer will never build you a model to give you a qualification whether the person is good or bad based on your gut feeling. It will give you stats based on the profile, Instagram profile, or LinkedIn profile. But that's it. So there are things that we have to really appreciate and care and nurture and keep it. And that would be essential in the future.
Yeah, that's.
You haven't thought about
it. Yeah. So, which advice you will give to young women, girls who want to succeed in AI and technology? What will be your key advice to those?
There are so many advices being
Maybe
given
not
to
necessarily
everyone.
to girls, but to
I think it's the most important
everyone.
one to everyone here is do what you love, do it well, and create an example for future generation. Just be a person of an example. However, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to change your opinion, because there is a 50% chance that your opinion is wrong. You have to understand. So most of the cases, what we think is actually someone else will come with the better data points and prove you that you're wrong. So don't stuck up with that. Just change your opinion or whatever it is. Just move on.
It's very good advice.
Yeah, just move on. Just don't stuck into it. Like, don't say like I'm right. No, no one is right. 50% of chances that you're wrong. You just have to know that.
From another perspective.
From another perspective, right? Yeah. So, and keep changing and changing. And of course, I'm a huge believer in education and training. So I think education and training is your sole responsibility, and you have to continuously upskill yourself and challenge yourself. So that's probably my advice. Love what you do. Even it's hard. I know it's hard, but have something that you really care about. Like in my case, I did care about research so much that nothing could stop me. Even I had to work, and it was really difficult late nights, but it was something like, I loved it, right? I loved to sit online and observe people talking online. But
from hobby
and it doesn't matter, and it's not necessarily it brought me wealth, right? No, it didn't pay my bills at all, but it was something I loved it, and I'm happy I've done it. So now it's brought me to different discussion points. It brought me here so I can have an interesting conversation. Yeah, so that's probably will be, and don't focus on the noise around whatever is happening, like the race, the gender, the biases. Just stick to yourself. Yeah, stick to what you do the best.
To self-development.
Self-development.
By the way, what's your favorite book or something?
Book.
Speaking about education.
Education, yes, I do read books a lot. I have like
you
3
still have time. This is fascinating.
I'm an old school.
I don't know when you do that.
Yeah, I'm an old school. I have like 3 to 4 books in my bed. Like it's depending on my mood, whatever I'm gonna pick up. And sometimes it's psychology books, sometimes it's motivational books, sometimes it's some sort of tech books as well. But probably if we are on the subject of AI and technology, my favorite will always stay and been by Ray Kurzweil, The Age of Spiritual Machines. It's like a Bible for me. It's huge, it's like that, but it's it's fascinating to read. He's a really futuristic technologist person who predicted whatever we're experiencing now 20 years ago, and he's got the entire roadmap for another 50 years, so it's great to read. He also wrote other books on something called like Singularity, I think. So just he's extremely famous.
We'll
yeah, and this is from technology side. He also wrote a book on this, how we can create our mindset from both psychology and technology perspective. From more like how human thinks, because that's my subject, that's my love. It's not lately, maybe like 2 to 3 years ago, I picked up Robert Greene, and also an American author, and it's The Laws of Human Nature. That's his first book. The second one was, I read the Power book and The Law of Seduction as well. So it's all how we interact with people and how we can rationalize their behavior. But the rest is like, of course, I did all of this top 10 books to read for motivation, top 10 books in decision making, top 10 books in AI. The rest you can find it. But that's probably the books that I kind of, from technology perspective and psychology perspective, I've got kind of handy,
Excited.
I always will recommend them. And
thank you. So I put it
Ray
on my
Kurzweil
list.
for sure, Robert Greene for sure as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's easy reads.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Yeah.
What's at which stage of your life you are right now? Do you have any conclusion or something?
No,
had
hopefully
such
no.
an experience.
No, hopefully I don't have a conclusion because the expectation, the average expectation of life expectancy is actually 78 years. I'm not even halfway through, so no life conclusions yet. And I know that 50% of whatever I'm saying might be wrong or from different perspective.
Yeah.
No life conclusions, but I probably always followed. Because I'm an academic, right? I need the theories. I need some sort of, some sort of tangible things what to follow. I follow the 3C concept: choice, chance, change. So what does it mean is you have to make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change.
Wow. 3C.
3C concept, yes.
It's mantra. It's like.
It's mantra, it's everything. For me, is like, okay,
So what
I
you
just have to
follow,
change.
And you had such a.
I always
amazing-
followed change. I always followed, if something is, it's from one perspective, it can be dangerous, right? Because what about we have to also talk about we haven't talked about the human relationships, the foundations, right? The rush of getting your career and your academic life sorted. But
It's
what
like
about
life balance?
Yeah, life balance. What about human relationships, right? Because this is actually the foundations. It's not about the technology. It's who do we have next to us? Do we have the right friends? Do we have the right partners in our life? How much time do we invest in that? And that's actually probably when you ask me about the life stage, that's actually where I am now. That's where I came to the point that I can run around the world collecting the passport stamps, but I still need people around me, right? I don't want to have technology around me. I don't want companions. I don't want tech companions next to me. We human beings, we are not designed to be by ourselves. We need a quality relationship, and that's a foundation of our life. So that's probably, after all of my experience, that's where I came from.
After learn everything about AI, being a top
Not
leader
everything,
in
and
tech,
I still
on the way. I mean,
still on the way, yeah, because my life is is not ending yet. Still on the way, hopefully. But yeah, that's probably, as you said, the life stage at the moment.
Yeah,
with
the
my
life
3C
stage,
concept.
yeah.
Take a chance and choices and changes.
And you challenged yourself a lot.
And
so
challenge,
fun.
and challenge as well. That's a 4C.
Yeah. Wow, thank you so much. I think I've learned a lot from you during just this little interview, and I'm feeling that there are so many other questions which we could discuss maybe
We can
another
do part
time. I
two.
hope
We can
so.
do part two. It's
Part two, yeah,
we can do
about
part two. Yeah.
your life journey experience, and I'm so happy that you made so many changes, having been here already in the US, and you experienced so many, like you've been in New York City, and now you're in LA.
In LA, California, yeah.
Yeah. New York or LA, it's always the big question, what's better?
Oh, no, I think the two cities are so amazing and beautiful, and I cannot make a choice.
No,
in
not
this
yet.
case.
But
Not
maybe
yet.
one day.
But
we will come
I wanna be two-sided, right? In this case, I love spending time in New York. I love my life in California. I love the drive in New York. I love the people in New York, but I also love the people in. I don't know. I can't say it. I think the two cities are amazing, just
Yeah,
amazing, just perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to make a decision. I want to have place everywhere.
Thank you. Hope we meet maybe in this studio, New York City,
Yeah.
or in another one. We'll see.
In the next couple of
Yeah.
years, for sure.
Thank you so much for your honest interview and so much information and your life experience which you shared with us. And I hope, and I'm sure so many people will find it so
I
useful.
hope so as well. I hope
Yeah.
it was useful. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for having a chat. And yeah, all the best for the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and see you next time.